Welcome to Brews and Boxing, Episode 2, Filthy Rich. Episode 2. Had to wait a whole week to get this going again. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm good. How's it going over there?
Oh, it's the same old, same old. Just waited to the next week so we can talk boxing again.
There it
Love
is.
talking boxing. This is our second episode. Our first episode went over pretty good. Here are a lot of positive things about the format, and I think we got to keep it going. What do you think, Filthy Rich?
Got to keep the fans happy, I guess. I think we have fans. I know I got some haters. Believe that.
Well, when you have fans, you always have haters too. I mean, it is the internet.
The yin and the yang.
Did you want to touch on anything from episode 1 last week?
I do want to mention quickly about Anthony Joshua and Big Baby Miller fight. I think I mentioned how Big Baby Miller pulled out of that fight from a broken wrist. And it was brought to my attention that he actually failed a drug test. So, I know Joshua still wanted to fight him because he failed that drug test with enough time to still continue that fight. Obviously, that fight didn't happen, but I did get that one wrong. And I almost want to say moving forward, I would rather not comment on drug use due to slander, allegations, and things of that nature. So, moving forward, if something goes wrong, I don't want to mention anything about drugs unless it's something that is brought up in the Brews and Boxing.
We're not talking about tainted meat anymore, is what you're saying?
Well, the Brews and News segment of Brews and Boxing. That's the only time I wish to talk about drug use.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good segue as any to bring it up to Brews and News. Let's ring the bell. All right, Brews and News. You know what we got to do, Richie? We got to pop a brew.
Got it right here.
So we could talk the news. Cheers, brother. Oh, that's good.
What you got today?
All right, well, the first thing we're going to talk about, obviously the big news is Billy Joe Saunders' license was suspended after he made that ridiculous video. We don't have to go into the details. Everyone knows what he did. And they suspended his license. So you want to comment on that? And if that fight happens with Alvarez, if he's going to fight Canelo or not, who would Canelo possibly fight then before he fights Triple G coming up?
So here's what I think. And you'd have to be a moron not to think what he did was stupid. Even he knows what he did was stupid. He has apologized for it. He's trying to do the right thing. I think this industry is an entertainment-based industry, and there's good guys and there are bad guys. That's what makes movies. It makes TV. Good guys and bad guys have been around since the beginning of time. I think with Saunders trying to play this bad guy role, let's just say he knocked out of the park. We see what Floyd has done playing the bad guy role, and financially he's set for life. I think Saunders wanted to take on that role. It's not working. It's not funny. You can be a good guy too, but what he did, no excuses, inexcusable. I know he is sorry for what he said. It was a terrible taste joke.
Well, that's an interesting take on it. I never really thought of him that he was doing it intentionally to try to be a bad guy. I just kind of thought he was a jerk. I mean, because it's not the first time he's done something stupid like this. But actually, that you bring that up, it actually does make sense if he's trying too hard to be a bad guy to get his name out there and just falling on his face doing it the wrong way. Basically, he's not doing it the Mayweather way. Like, he's doing it very poor choices of making himself a bad guy.
We even talked last week. We did not actually talk about last week what he did that got him arrested. And right. I still don't want to talk about it. But I'll just say he probably hasn't learned his lesson. He's going to do something stupid months from now, and none of us should be surprised. You know how many times Adrian Broner has said, he's committed to boxing, and what does he do? He does something stupid. Right. So don't be surprised if, Saunders loses his mind again. Not to say he lost his mind, but if he does something stupid again, this is almost in his nature. So I think he wants to get his license back. And in all honesty, if there's a big money fight with Canelo, uh, the WBO or whoever suspended him, they're gonna give his license back because they're looking for dollars. It's that simple.
Yeah, there's too much money involved, but he did do what I thought was the impossible. He's made me dislike him enough that I'm actually going to cheer for Canelo in a fight because you know how I feel about Canelo Alvarez, and now I'm going to have to cheer for Canelo in that fight. I kind of was anyway because I want Canelo to win. I want him and Triple G both to win going into their fight in the fall. But
No
yeah, I
bueno.
mean, uh, Billy Joe Saunders, I kind of despise him. I really do. I mean, it's working if he's trying to get that kind of pub, but
I understand.
yeah,
I get it. Like there's I can't tell anyone, hey, you should like this guy. I'd look foolish. And I can't tell anyone, hey, you should hate this guy because again, I'd probably look foolish.
do you have any idea of if for some reason that they keep the suspension going, who do you think Canelo would step in and fight then?
If he is gonna be suspended for this Canelo fight, he will just get a tune-up fight with someone, and Canelo as well will just take Caesar Salad Jr. one more time. I mean, he's just looking for a big money payday. It's going to be another catchweight fight that Golden Boy has set up for him to succeed. I think this fight will happen, but if there is a Triple G fight in September, shortly after that, I think will be a Saunders fight. But in the meantime, it sounds like Japan is moving forward with boxing here in the next couple months.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Canelo could have a fight before September, and it's going to be a cakewalk tune-up fight against something.
I was thinking
I
maybe
no
he'd fight like Rob Brandt. Rob Brandt hasn't fought since July. He lost. I mean, that seems like a decent tune-up fight, and you could still get some play in Rob Brandt. You know, he's at least he's not a big name, but at least he's someone that's ranked.
They're both on the DAZN network, so it can happen.
That's the other point.
But it's all going to be about the dollars. What's Brandt willing to take compared to the next opponent?
True. That and Brandt, he's coming off a loss. Maybe he doesn't want to get 2 losses in a row, but it was an embarrassing loss too. He got knocked out in the second round.
Well, even I think a fight with Canelo and Murata might be good, especially if Japan is moving forward. Maybe they go over and fight in Japan, and Canelo can prove that, like you mentioned last week, Tyson Fury traveling, being a world champ. I think maybe that's what Canelo needs to do: start fighting on foreign soil and proving his worth.
And Murata was the one that beat Rob Brandt last July. So Murata, he hasn't fought since he fought in December, I think, too.
Well, Brandt beat him as well, but
yeah, Brandt beat Murata the first fight, but the second fight, Murata knocked him out in the second round. It was pretty convincing. I don't remember watching that fight totally. I mean, I watched it, but I don't remember the highlights of it. I just remember that it was,
I mean, Tyson Fury and Wilder just fought. I can't remember anything that happened.
Exactly.
It seems like it's been months, and yeah, I guess it has been over a month now. But I miss my boxing, man.
Yeah, me too. And actually, that's a good little port for our second Brews and News. As we were filming last week, they announced that Wilder Fury's rematch will be on October 3rd. So that's scheduled. That much time off, you still like Fury to win that fight, or?
I don't see why not. Again, this is not something that I don't think we're clamoring to. I think the American boxing fan wants to see the American heavyweight back on top of the world. So great. Yeah. But I don't care for that fight. I want to see Wilder against, like we were talking about last week, Ruiz or Ortiz. I'd like to see Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua or Dillian White. Right. Let them fight in their own country and add some excitement there. But we don't need to see part 3. This is not a trilogy that will stand the test of time.
Oh, I was also talking to a friend of ours, and he loves our show, and he was saying, but we forgot to mention Dillian White's major left hook, the He's
Oh,
like,
whoops.
yeah, how did we never mention that? He's like, I'm
Oh,
screaming it at
no.
my TV. I'm like, well, you knew about it. Why do you need us to say
Man, tell him to turn it off.
it?
I shouldn't say that.
No, don't turn it off. Please don't turn it off.
Okay.
Make sure you tune in and tell your friends. Don't turn it off. All right. You ready to go on to the Filthy Five? You feel like you touched on this enough?
Bring it on.
All right, let's go to the Filthy Five. The Filthy Five this week, we're talking middleweights. Middleweights. You know how much we love the middleweights. It's my favorite division. That and welterweights. Welterweights are a great division too. But we did our Filthy Five where we rank our top 5 in the middleweight division. We're gonna have some asterisks because a lot of guys move around, but we're kind of trying to guys that fight mainly middleweight. That's their kind of natural weight, So we're gonna have that. And if we agree on number 1, we're gonna have a BAB champion, the Brews and Boxing champion. I don't know if we're gonna have one. We didn't compare our notes before the show. We like to kind of do this one on the fly because as we talk about our list, it's kind of fun to talk about. So you want to start with your number 5 or you want me to start with my number 5?
I can. I'll start by saying we didn't compare heavyweights last week either. I don't think we did.
No.
So yeah, this will be different and exciting because one thing with the heavyweights, they really don't move up or down. Usyk moved up from cruiserweight. He didn't make either of our lists last week. But as far as this middleweight division goes, I mean, I'll give a crack at it and start with my number 5. And with my asterisk, I do want to mention I do not have Jaime Munguia on this list. I know he is ranked at middleweight on some federations and circuits, but he was not ranked in the middleweight division on the sources I looked at. For my number 5, I have Chris Eubank Jr.
Okay.
I out of everyone in that division, I had him just above Murata, who's coming off those couple losses, but I don't think they're that important. I think Chris Eubank, he has the pedigree, a little undisciplined, but I think he has it in him. He's still a young dude. It wouldn't surprise me in the next couple of years. He could possibly clean out that division. I think he does have that in him.
Yeah, he's coming off an impressive win back in December. Knockout in the second round over was it Korobov? I can never. Is that how you pronounce his name? I didn't watch that fight, but what I read about it was it was an impressive performance. I don't know much about Eubank Jr. I'm gonna bow to your knowledge on that one, but I'm gonna have to check him out now, especially if you're saying he's your number 5. I like it. Well, my number 5, I went with and I forgive the last name pronunciation because I struggle with
I know who it is. I know who it is because I got him on. Go ahead.
My number 5 is Sergey Derevyanchenko. I can never pronounce that last name, but I like him a lot. He's coming off a very, very impressive fight against Gennady Golovkin. As you can tell, Gennady Golovkin is one of my favorite fighters. Probably is my favorite fighter to watch of all time. And Gennady is definitely not himself anymore. As we know, he trains trainers and everything like that. But very impressive fight by Sergey. I got him as my number 5. I'm interested to see how he would do against guys in my top 4. Obviously, he fought at least one of the guys in my top 4. But I'm interested to see how he goes moving on. He's still young. He's only had 15 professional fights. So, we'll see what happens. So, you want to go to your number 4 then, Richie?
Yeah, I can shoot with my number 4. My number 4 is this guy by the name of Sergey Derevyanchenko. I think that's a name you were looking for. I put Derevyanchenko number 4 because let me back up a bit. Number 4, I wanted to have Danny Jacobs, but he was not. He's moved up to 168, so I have taken him off this list. Otherwise, I probably would have had Jacobs there. Now, Derevyanchenko had that tough fight with Jacobs, but Jacobs did win that fight. He, again, just like you said, he lost to Golovkin in a very close decision. So I think Derevyanchenko deserves his props. He has a deep amateur background. I think he went 400 fights, if not very close to it. He has the skills. He has everything. What he does not have is a name that Americans can pronounce, and that's why he is not getting the exposure I feel he deserves. He's a solid, polished fighter. All the terms we've used before: footwork, speed, everything. But he did not beat Jacobs. Jacobs, I thought, won that fight handily. I mean, it was close. There's 2 9-10 rounds. There's a 9-10 round where it's very close the whole time, and then there's a 9-10 round where it is easily the guy who won the round gets the 10, and for some reason the other guy gets a 9. As far as him and Jacobs went, I thought he put up some close rounds, but he clearly lost every round. I thought Jacobs beat him. Obviously, him and Golovkin were close. I have Derevinchenko number 4.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see his future fights. I said, his 2 losses were very, very good fights. It was unanimous decision loss against Golovkin, and I agree. I mean, I agree with you on the Jacobs. I don't have him in my top 5 either because he's been moving up, but he stood tough for them. I mean, he lost the fight, but I'd be interested to see. I think he lacks experience with the bigger names. So I mean, maybe this last Golovkin fight will kind of propel him a little bit.
Maybe.
So. All right. Well, my number 4 may shock you. It shocked me. It was sad to me. But my number 4 is Gennady Golovkin. He, I don't like the trainer change. I don't, I want to have him higher, but he's just not the same fighter that I fell in love with back in the day. He doesn't attack the body anymore. He doesn't use that iron chin of his, and with age, your iron chin starts to go away. Maybe that's why he felt like he had to make the change to protect himself. He lost his undefeated record. Maybe he wants to keep his never going down, getting knocked down record. It's a sad day, but it doesn't appear that he's got a lot of Pacquiao in him where he's going to be able to last 100 years. He's got the one big fight coming up left against Canelo, and I'd love to see him beat Canelo. I don't think he's going to beat him. I think it's going to be the same thing over and over again. It's going to be 12 rounds of, dancing around and then losing by decision. I wish he would just go back one last time to the old school style, attack the body, hurt the head, win the fight. But I got Gennady Golovkin as my number 4.
Yeah, I get it. The Jonathan Banks training, I don't know if it was both Klitschko's, but that European style of fighting, basically protecting yourself, very defensive fighting. Right. I get why he switched from Mexican style to, I guess we can call it the European style. I get it.
So, yeah. That was my number 4. Who do you guys? Your number 3, Rich?
So my number 3, I have Jermall Charlo at number 3. I think he has the power to knock anyone out at any time. He has the footwork, and he has not a deep amateur background. I think he got into the pros not even too soon, but he has not been challenged yet. Right. But the few opponents he has had in the ring who have posed any kind of threat, he has handled them very well. And I could see him – a fight with Derevinchenko can happen, and I think he could beat Derevinchenko. I think he is a threat to anyone in that division. He could be number 1. Right now I have him number 3 because his body of work just isn't quite there yet.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to agree with you because my number 3 is Charlo as well. Coming off a great fight against Dennis Hogan where he knocked him out in the 7th round, where he pretty much dominated that whole fight. I like him a lot. He doesn't have the big fights, though. I'd like to see him fight Demetrius Andrade, but he hasn't done it. And, Andrade wants to fight these guys, and Charlo's not doing it. And Charlo, that's the big problem is Charlo just hasn't fought anybody that big name. He hasn't had that big knockdown fight. I agree with you. Number 3 is Charlo. It's kind of a prove me number 3 too. Prove it to me. that you deserve to be there, you know?
And the Andrade fight's not going to happen. Don't hold your breath for that fight with Aram. I don't see that fight happening. Andrade is getting not the simple fights, but he's not getting the big names on his resume. I don't see it happening, at least this year, or whatever's left of this year. By the time we get our fight game back.
Yeah, I agree. It's sad. I mean, I think that'd be a great fight. I wish that Andrade could be able to fight some more people. You know, I I think he's a monster that's just waiting to prove it. But that could be Charlo too. You know, so Charlo's kind of in that prove me spot at number 3. Who do you got as number 2, Filthy Rich?
My number 2 guy is Gennadievich Golovkin, Triple G.
We're up at 2, huh?
I want him as number 1, but again, he struggled with Jacobs. That hurt a little bit, and he struggled with Derevenchenko. So it does not put him. Not to say it doesn't put him number 1, but I don't want to overlook that fight with Kell Brook. I know we talked about Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder last week, how Ortiz won those 7 rounds. Teddy Atlas had Kell Brook winning 5 rounds against Golovkin. I mean, the fight only went 5 rounds. And when I watched that fight, I wouldn't argue Kell Brook winning 5 rounds. I think I had Kell Brook winning 3, but Golovkin, I'm not even going to say he struggled, but he was relying on a knockout. Obviously, that's what he got. But even then, it shouldn't be close. A welterweight or junior middleweight moving up to fight a middleweight, there shouldn't be a contest. This fight shouldn't have looked that close, and it was. So no knock on Golovkin. He should be my number 1, but watching those fights says that there's a new number 1 guy in town. The boogeyman is no longer the boogeyman in that division.
Yeah, I hope you're right on Golovkin being up there, because I love Golovkin. I really wish that he would go back to his Mexican style for one last fight, for his fight in November against Canelo. But ever since that Kell Brook fight, it might be that was kind of the start where you saw he's kind of starting to go on the decline, you know. And I think he kind of felt that way too, and maybe that's why he's changing styles and changing everything. Maybe, you know, when he's getting hit more now, or back then he wasn't feeling as strong in the later rounds. Maybe he felt like he had to protect himself more. Maybe he felt like, hey, I want to fight for 10 more years, like
Klitschko. I mean,
like Klitschko, but like Pacquiao is what I meant, like Pacquiao. But
yeah, there you go, Pacquiao too.
But Pacquiao, he's a different style of fighter completely. I mean, I'd love to see Triple G come back to form. I guess we'll have to see. I mean, he would definitely jump up my list if he beats Alvarez. He's going to be my number 1, obviously, and even if he retires after that. And we're both in agreement. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer too. Triple G. When he decides to quit, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Let me tell you, when Miguel Cotto hung up the gloves, that broke my heart. I miss hearing Miguel Cotto's voice. When Gennady Golovkin calls it quits, just leave me alone for about a week. I'm gonna miss that man's voice, but I get it.
His post-fight interviews are always great. He wants to put on the big drama show. And the big drama show is coming to an end soon, and it's kind of sad. It's kind of like, when Brett Favre was playing, people were like, oh, Brett Favre should retire. I'm like, no, I like watching Brett Favre play. I like watching it. And I'll be sad the day when he hangs it up, because I won't be able to watch him play no more. And I'll be sad the day that Gennady Golovkin does. But, he'll probably have a very successful career in, being an analyst. ESPN will probably sign him because he's got the gift of gab. A little bit, so he's always got that trademark smile too. He's going to look good on camera, So maybe that's why he's got to protect himself.
Get him on with Max. Have him. If I can just listen to him say Max on a loop, that'll satisfy my needs.
Right, how about that as a boxing show? You got it's called the Big Drama Show, or the Big Drama Boxing Show with Max Kellerman and Gennady Golovkin.
Make it happen.
That would be great. Well, my number 2 is not Gennady Golovkin, as he was my number 4, but my number 2 is Boo Boo, the Southpaw, Demetrius Andrade. I like him a lot. I think he is a beast. I want to see him fight the next top guys. I feel like people are scared of him. They don't want to fight him. And, he's called out people. He's called out Charlo. He's called out Golovkin. He's called out Canelo. He wants to fight all of them. And it seems like nobody wants to take the risk to fight him. That tells me that they know he's really, really good. Really good. He just, he was talking about he was going to move up to fight Billy Joe Saunders before, now Saunders is going to fight Canelo instead, which obviously is a bigger payday for Billy Joe Saunders. But he said he'd even step up to super middleweight and fight Billy Joe Saunders. I love him. I'd love to see him in a big fight. I hope that he gets Canelo / Golovkin, whoever wins the next fight, if Golovkin doesn't retire after winning, hopefully. But I got Andrade as my number 2. Any thoughts on that?
No spoilers here, but I do not have him in my top 5. I feel like his long layoff he had in the 2017, 18, something, whenever it was. He just fought tune-up fighters. I don't think he's really beaten anybody. I don't think anyone's ducking him. I think, again, he's just under. I mean, when he was fighting on HBO, when all these other fighters, the Golden Boy fighters, weren't touching top-ranked fighters, and then you had Al Heyman on the PBC, and then the launch of DAZN happened. I think the promoters are getting in the way of this stuff.
He's an Eddie Hearn guy.
Yeah, so he's on DAZN then, I take it.
Eddie Hearn is DAZN, isn't he?
I guess so, but I don't think anyone's really ducking him. They're ducking him the same way, not the same way they're ducking Triple G, but there was no big money in fighting Triple G. It was high risk, low reward. But with Andrade, I don't even think there's a high risk or a high reward. It's show me something. A fight can be made with him. Show me something. I don't think he beats Derevyanchenko. I don't think he beats Eubank. I don't think he beats any of these guys. But time will tell. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. But for the time being, I'm not impressed. So you remember those fans and those haters I was talking? Yeah, I'm sure I'll hear from them this week.
Hey, I mean, Luke Keeler ain't a big fighter, but he demolished him from start to finish in that last fight. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that fight, but
no, didn't.
He dominated. He knocked him down in the first 10 seconds of the fight and just beat him mercifully until the 7th round, where they just stopped it. I mean, he looked dominant. I think maybe if you watch that fight, maybe you'd see something that I saw. I don't know. He just impressed me with that fight, and the fact that he keeps calling people out, that he hasn't got the fight yet, and maybe when he comes in there, he won't go. But right now, I got him as my number 2 just because he wants to fight. Nobody's fighting him. And I love the nickname that he came up with, Billy Joe Joke-Ass Saunders. I did like that.
Looking for a fight that you can make it happen. Keep doing that, because the fight can happen. Billy Joe will try to make that fight happen if you got words for him.
He goes, Billy Joe. His quote was, "I'm willing to go up to 168 to fight Billy Joe Joke-Ass Saunders in my next fight, and that's what I'm looking to do." Eddie does have that big checkbook. Offer Billy Joe Saunders that big check so I can whoop his ass too.
I know Eubank called out Saunders yesterday as well. I think everyone's having a ball picking on Saunders right now. Right. And they better be careful what they wish for, because Saunders ain't no joke.
Well, that was back in January when he did it. So it was before this thing with Saunders went down. I think it was before I can't remember when they announced Saunders was going to fight Canelo, but I think it was around after that. I think it was like early February that they announced that those two were going to fight. And I think he wanted to fight him, and then he's like, "No, I'm going to go fight Canelo." And why wouldn't you fight Canelo? Because Canelo's the big money check.
Yeah. Well, Eubank said something yesterday, and that fight will. I think that fight will happen.
Which one? The
Eubank and Billy Joe Saunders.
oh,
But
okay.
if Andrade wants some of that from Eubank, bring it on. I think Eubank can take. I mean, that would be if he can beat if Saunders, excuse me, if Andrade can beat Eubank Jr., then I'm wrong. And boy, I am happy to admit I'm wrong. But I'd like to see what this Andrade is made of. And put him in the ring with Eubank. Put him in the ring with.
Put him in the ring with Charlo.
Yeah, well, I think Charlo would win, but put him in the ring with like Murata or Jaime Munguia
Mm.
or Danny Jacobs, somebody who is not on my list, or I guess it's my list, but I have him at the end of 10. I have him as like maybe 9 or 10 in the middleweight division. I don't think I'm sleeping on him by any means. I just don't see him as a top 5 or even a top 2 the way you have him.
Yeah. Well, that's why our lists are so much fun.
Here it is. I think we're crowning a champion, aren't we?
Well, I feel like
feel it.
I don't know if we could both keep this guy or my guy out of our top.
Yeah, I feel it. Oh, here we
might
go.
have our first.
Is it on you or me?
Do you want me to go first, or do you want me to you?
I'm excited. Go ahead.
All right. Well, my number 1 is, and I hate to say it because I hate the guy, Canelo Saul Alvarez is my number 1.
Take a drink for that. Take a drink for that.
Does that mean that's your number 1 as well?
We have a new champ.
We have a champion. We have a BAB champion, the most prestigious title belt in the world, by the way. Well, we don't have a belt, but the most prestigious title. The only championship that matters is having our championship. And Canelo Saul Alvarez, you are our first champion.
Does that mean we have to follow him on Twitter?
Oh, it might have to.
Let's follow him.
We did start a Twitter channel.
Let's follow him.
We're not drinking Tecate here, though. We're not going that far.
Maybe next week we buy some Tecate in honor of this moment.
Oh, I don't know if we could drink that.
I'm not drinking it. I'm not. I'm not. Never mind.
So why don't you go ahead and talk about our new champion here, Canelo Alvarez, why you have him number 1.
Well, touching on Golovkin and Jacobs, how close that fight was. We watched Canelo handle Jacobs, and that really that's what put me over the top with Canelo. Not to compare Amir Khan and Kell Brook, but because we know those two. Amir Khan's probably ducking Kell Brook. I'm not gonna sit here
for sure.
But the way Amir Khan was handled in that fight, Gennady should have been doing that against Kell Brook, and he didn't. But let's not act like Amir Khan is something special. Was it Liam Smith? Not to say Liam Smith is anything special either, but Canelo pounded Liam Smith. I believe it was Liam Smith, and he pounded another one. My notes escape me right now. I just go off the brain. I don't even want to talk about this Sergey Kovalev fight, the knockout, because that wasn't even in the division. And I am trying to keep in mind that he is fighting a lot of these catchweight fights. And I'm not a big fan of that. But at the end of the day, if you are a middleweight star, you need to fight at middleweight. You're also beating some big name guys, and I'm not going to overlook that either. Don't sign up for the fight if you're not willing to make a catchweight. These guys signed up for those fights. They got beat up by Canelo. Judges weren't really involved in these. I thought Golovkin won the first 2 fights. The first fight, he clearly won. The second fight, I had him winning. I wouldn't argue too much if people had it a draw. Canelo did not beat Golovkin that second fight. But I also can't put Golovkin over Canelo just based on what have you done for me lately. And I think Canelo deserves our little championship.
I agree, and it's kind of sad that he's the opening champion that we've ever had, because you know how I feel about him. I do not like him at all. I hate him. I mean, hate's a big word, but he's the kind of guy that I just can't get behind. I think he personally lost both fights against Golovkin too, and I agree with you. If you say the second fight's a draw, I can't argue against that. I mean, it can definitely be a draw. that second
But
fight.
not
But that first,
Canelo winning. I don't. I
no,
mean, do you think Canelo won? I would argue that Canelo did not win the second fight.
no. I would say it was at best a draw. I felt like he really lost the first fight, and obviously there were some judging issues in the first fight.
There
Um,
was tainted meat involved in the second fight that got it pushed back. I mean,
right.
there's a lot to deal, like to unpackage here with Canelo. But at the end of the day, number one.
Well, it kind of felt like too that he was kind of pulling the Mayweather Pacquiao card, where like he was trying to wait as long as he could to fight Golovkin, because the longer he could wait, the better chance he could get. You know, if he fought Golovkin back in 2016, 2015, I think Golovkin may have knocked him out. But you know, Golovkin decided to change his strategy completely, and I still think he won the first fight. I think that draw was ridiculous. Obviously, Adelaide Bird uh, might have got paid off. Should never judge a boxing match ever again. Um, and the second fight was a close fight. It wasn't as exciting fight as I would hoped it was, but and I think he's going to beat him. I think Canelo's actually going to beat him this third time, especially because Golovkin's just not the fighter he was. But you know, Canelo also does have great wins under his belt. I mean, obviously you brought up Amir Khan. And we can't have a podcast without you bringing up Amir Khan at some point, because you know the male model Amir Khan. He is a beautiful man. But he's also got fights against Cotto or Miguel Cotto, and you know, he's got some good fights. You know, the Mayweather fight, obviously he lost, but you know, that's his only loss on his record besides the two unofficial ones against Golovkin. But
Well, also the Trout and the Lara fights. I don't know if he really won those either. I mean, there's huge paydays in having him win, whether it's the WBO or the WBC or Vegas or whoever it is. It kind of pays to have him as a champion. And
well,
by all means, go right
with the
ahead.
zone coming out, they're making him the poster boy to zone basically. They're kind of trying to make him a household name. That Kovalev fight, yeah, that was a joke. I mean, Kovalev fought without a pulse in that fight. It was like it was like in wrestling, the finger poke of doom kind of fight. You know, it was just like Kovalev came in there, got a paycheck, and walked out. You
It
know?
was a catch weight fight too. You're always at an advantage when you get to pick the weight you want your opponent in, and it is what it is. Don't sign up for it. If you think you beat Canelo at 164 and a half, then go out there and beat him at 164 and a half.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't want to hear about it. He beat you. He knocked you out. It wasn't like it went to Adelaide Bird's hand or anyone's hand. You control your own destiny, and Kovalev got knocked out.
Now, if he would have went up there and fought Andre Ward, do you think that would have been different?
Is that for? Are we talking about that next week? Do you want to talk about that right now?
We could. But I was talking about, you know, when Canelo moved up because he wanted to fight in that light heavyweight division and stuff. If you would have kind of fight Andre Ward come out of retirement, that would have been an interesting fight to watch. I think Ward may have knocked him in the next week, but instead he got Kovalev, who was fighting on life support. It looked like it was not a good fight. It was a boring fight. But you know, his fight against Daniel Jacobs too, that was a great fight. That was a prove me fight in my mind, that he's the best right now. And as Ric Flair says, to be the man, you got to beat the man. He's beat all the men. You know, whether or not you can agree with every one of them, he still has the win, he still has the W, and he's the man. So until somebody beats the man, he is the man. Yeah. So that's our top five, our filthy five, and we crowned a new BAB champion in Canelo Alvarez. Congratulations for the most prestigious title you've ever won in your career.
He better follow us back. He better follow us back. We're serious here.
Yeah, let's have him as a guest next week. That'd be great, wouldn't it? So, Canelo, when you're watching this and we named you our champion, and this is going to be the biggest deal of your career, you want to come on and accept it gracefully next week.
Better show up
in
on
the interview.
our show.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Show
up. Oh, that'd be amazing. All right. Well, that does it for our filthy five. So let's move right on to the 13th round. The 13th round is something we always kind of talk about in the sports world, but outside of boxing. Filthy Rich, you and me were talking before the show, just different ideas, shooting back and forth. And we were talking about, we were both doing that Facebook thing that you found where you put your favorite person from each
Yeah.
sport. You know, we had the NBA and stuff like that. And then you added to it, you added favorite WWF wrestler, WCW wrestler, ECW wrestler. I liked your additions. And you and me agreed that we're both huge Chris Jericho fans. So we thought we'd talk, why not? A little Chris Jericho. Yeah, he was my favorite wrestler back in WCW. He was always entertaining every time he came on. You know, with the Rufus security guard, with the shirt that only went down to the top of his gut that said Jericho Personal Security. The way he was entertaining, he'd come out, you know, and grab fans or grab signs and stuff like that. And you know, the way he'd change, he'd, call him Chris Benoit or the man of 1,001 holds or 1,004 holds, I think you said it was. And,
Stinko Malenko.
Dean Stinko Malenko. And
Greenberg.
yeah. So we're going to talk a little Chris Jericho this week. What's your favorite Chris Jericho moments? That I said a few of mine there.
You know, I'll back up a little bit. As far as favorite moments go, everything. I mean, you're opening up a can of worms here, but I will talk about, you know, what was it, like 98, 97-ish. For those who didn't know, yours truly had beautiful flowing locks. Yeah, I had long, pretty hair.
He was.
But Jericho used to wear his hair in a ponytail that started right here.
Straight up, yep.
And I would do that every so often when I'm just having a good time. I would wear my hair like Chris Jericho and spread and say, "Come on, baby, put my foot over your body for the 1, 2, 3." I still listen to Chris Jericho's podcast, if not to do any plugs or promotions, but there's an interesting episode about a month ago, 2 months ago. An O.J. Simpson conspiracy junkie is on there, and he makes some interesting points. You should check it out. Definitely check that out. And to top off my little rant here, so he was the champion of the new promotion AEW, and with this whole COVID-19 going on, wrestling is still going. They're fighting in empty arenas right now. Well, in this AEW, they have not even acknowledged that COVID-19 exists. And what's going on is Chris Jericho is telling everyone, "I have banned fans from the ring until I say it's okay." And it is, you got to see this. It is so funny. We are taping here on a Wednesday night, so AEW is finished. If you can get a hold of some on-demand material, check it out. I have not watched it yet, but next week, maybe check out and see what Chris Jericho does in the ring. But he does say, "I have banned fans from ringside until I say they can come back." It's hilarious. I mean, the guy's been on top of the world for over 20 years now. I have been fighting with him and Rob Van Dam as my number one spot, and I'm not going to reveal who my number one wrestler is, but let me just say, Chris, you like, if you were watching this show, oh, please come on. I'll bump Canelo for you. But yeah, Chris Jericho, man, oh my goodness.
He was so fun to watch too. I mean, him as a heel, but he was a funny heel, where he was very entertaining every time he was on. As you said, like when he, obviously he's never going to score the pinfall with the foot on the thing and the "come on, baby." But it was so funny to watch people kick out on one every time he did that, and then, he has the lion tamer, which is one of the funnest moves you ever see. He never really beats people with it because, no one taps out in wrestling anymore, and they don't have those like the old days where you'd fight some nobody, Barry Jones from, that's already in the ring,
Yeah.
Those are the kind of guys that would tap out. But it's kind of a cool move that he can bring out from anywhere. He's got the lion salt, which is a really athletic move.
Pin Triple H.
Yeah.
I don't care what
I was
they say
actually
about
watching a thing about Chris Jericho the other day when he fought Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and he missed the lion salt where he didn't get off the ropes well enough, and he was going to land right on the back of his neck and probably break his neck. And kudos to how good Mr. Perfect was, Kurt Hennig. He saw that he missed it because he could hear Jericho be scared when he hit the rope, like, oh no, he's not going to make it. And what you see Kurt Hennig do is he rolls over and puts his knees up so it kind of props up so Jericho lands on his back and not his head first, and just a awesome move. He's like, I could have died in that. That was an amazing thing to pull off. Because he may have been, they didn't talk about whether or not he was going to put up his legs anyway. A lot of people put up their legs in the lion salt back then. But the way that he turned just in time to see it so he can, save him basically from that. And another thing we were talking about too, when he came into WWF with that countdown to the Millennium Clock that was always going every week. They pumped it for weeks and weeks and weeks. They didn't say what it was, but I remember you look at it. It was in it was 99, and you do the time on the clock. I'm like, that's nowhere near New Year's Eve. That's like in October. That doesn't make any sense. And then it happens during the Rock's promo in the ring, and I thought it was really cool because everyone was talking on the internet that time that Jericho was coming over, but you never knew, because in that days it was kind of just rumors and stuff like that. You never really knew when people were talking. He hasn't been on WCW in a long time, and when they do the lights out, and then they kind of had all the city lights, and then it just says Jericho in the thing, and then he's just sitting at the top of the thing. He's got the ponytail coming out the top, and then he has to say, "Welcome to Ra's Jericho." I loved it. I wish that he wasn't a bad guy, but it was kind of fun that he was the bad guy, and a guy that got no respect as a champion. By the way, for some reason, they never wanted to keep the belt on him, even though, And then when he had the belts, he had both belts and had Stephanie as a manager, and they just kind of made him like just a phony champion that wasn't fun. But he,
Maybe.
his professionalism, he played every one of them out like he tried to make it the best he could.
Well, that's when I enjoyed Jericho the most. Maybe when it sounded phony to you, but when he beat Stone Cold and The Rock in the same night, went on to the next pay-per-view and I believe beat The Rock, and then went on to the next pay-per-view and then beat Stone Cold, and then
Never
went on
clean.
to the next. What's that?
Never clean though.
Fair enough. Is boxing ever clean?
No.
Nah, neither is wrestling. So we're all in the same realm here. And yeah, he lost to Triple H, which really, really bothered me. I did not like that. But yeah, he never. It was that tournament that he won the 2 titles. I think the first undisputed champ, unless you want to go back to when Ric Flair left WCW with the title, showed up at the 94 Rumble and won the Rumble and became the champion. I believe that's what happened. So maybe he was really the first undisputed, but as far as like the record show and the record book show, when Chris Jericho beat The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night. Yeah, Angle was in that tournament, and Angle would be the only one I would say could be on Jericho's level. I get it. I get it all, man. I love some Chris Jericho.
They both played great heels. Him and Kurt Angle both played great heels. And that was, I believe it was the 94 Rumble, because that's when Bobby Heenan was on commentary, and he was talking about his new signing is going to show up, and it was Ric Flair. And then, it was kind of a cool moment because, Bobby Heenan never seemed to win with his guys and the Heenan family, and he's talking it up. And then he actually won. And then they're backstage, and him and Kurt Hennig and Bobby Heenan, and they're all celebrating, and then they have to all stop and go, "We told you so." I love that.
Can I just say something? If we're losing any boxing fans by talking about wrestling, farewell, because I love some wrestling, man. Don't get me wrong. I can talk wrestling all day long.
Yeah, I like old school wrestling. I think I don't like it as much nowadays. I just I don't know. My last kind of new age wrestler that I liked was Randy Orton. I kind of liked what he did. The vines that they make of RKOs out of nowhere and stuff like that. It's always funny. And his Legend Killer gimmick I thought was really cool because they can keep bringing guys back for him to beat that were kind of in my area that I liked. I liked watching that. So any other closing thoughts on Chris Jericho?
Well, let's just say you got out of the wrestling relationship at a good time, because the rest of us who are still involved, we're in an abusive relationship. We don't really like it. We're just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
As far as like Chris Jericho, maybe we can do a Chris Jericho part 2 sometime, because I've forgotten more than I can remember.
Lionheart Chris Jericho. Remember Lionheart?
Don't get me started.
I do love me some Chris Jericho. I mean, funny enough, our mutual friend Joe Sweat. This is my last little Jericho story. Back in the day, we're all big fans of that. Back in the day, the WCW and WWE wars. Um, Me and my friend Buddha. I don't know if you ever met my friend Buddha, but he's a large guy in high school, and we used to always go to Joe Sweat's basketball games, and we always used to bring wrestling themes. Like we had bed sheets where we write the EWO for Edward or Edberg World Order for one of the players, but for Sweat, Buddha wore the short or the shirt that came down to here, and he wrote "Walk to Personal Security" on
Oh
it.
my
And
god,
then after the games, when everyone's at center court, he'd walk out there and start pushing people
that's
away from Joe.
great. That's
Like, don't touch him,
awesome.
don't touch him, don't touch him. It was great.
That is awesome.
All right, so that's another one of my favorite memories. I actually still have. I believe he has that shirt because he busted it out. I think at my 35th birthday party, he brought that shirt. And I was like, I can't believe you still have that shirt. That was awesome. So that's my little thing on Chris Jericho. That's our 13th round for this week. And let's move right on to the Filthy Fan question of the week. All right, Filthy Rich, the Filthy Fan question of the week comes to us from John and Egan. And he wants you to talk about how does drug testing work in boxing?
The drug testing policy in boxing is very let's here's like the simplest terms in a way I can really break it down. First and foremost, there are three major organizations that do testing. One of them is WADA, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association. As far as I know, they do Olympic testing mainly. Maybe they do amateurs as well, but they're known for Olympic testing. They're known for kind of catching people. Most importantly, they're known for taking bribes. So they are the one you don't. If there is a WADA tested fight, it's not legit. There, once you take a bribe, all bets are off again. And I don't think WADA does professional boxing. Another big one is USADA, and I believe USADA is they're maybe strictly with the UFC. USADA is the United States Anti-Doping Association. So I know Mayweather is like in bed with those guys. I don't want to. I shouldn't say any names, but Mayweather has been known for doing USADA tested fights. Canelo's fight versus Kovalev, I believe, was an USADA fight. Problem I have with USADA, they may catch you, but I believe they are the ones that will tell you we're going to be showing up at your doorstep Monday morning. Be ready. Well, giving me a week, 2 weeks, heads up, 3 weeks, whatever it may be, I can take that masking agent to hide it. So if I got caught, that just shows what a dummy I am, or as a fighter, you are for getting caught by USADA. They're basically telling you we're going to be at your door. And if you fail that test, you have it coming. The main one, the one that catches everyone, is the VADA, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. This is the one Golovkin tests under consistently. They catch everyone. They show up at your doorstep, and they don't tell you when they're coming. So they will catch you every single time. The VADA tested programs are the ones that are the most stringent, the ones that will catch you if you're cheating, and the ones at the end of the fight, there's really no shenanigans. Obviously, we know Tyson Fury had something going on where people were accusing him of having loaded gloves. That's not a drug policy thing. But as far as drug policy is, going back to the question, that's how I can break down drug testing in boxing. I do want to mention that these companies, WADA, USADA, VADA, are agreed upon on the camps of both fighters. So when Canelo wants to fight someone and says, I'm using USADA, you have to take USADA, don't sign it if you think Canelo's going to mess this up or he failed tainted meat or whatever it may be. That's what you signed up for. You're taking it. So uh, that's all I got. Unless you have a question, if I wasn't clear about something.
Well, can when you handicap a fight to yourself to kind of decide on an upcoming fight, is this something that you check out which agency is doing the drug testing on it?
Um, it would be nice to know that that it is available. Like we should know the drug testing policy like we know the referees and judges. They are introduced every single fight. Uh Mrs. Letterman is judging the fight and so is refing the fight. We should know right off the bat who's drug testing this fight. I think that is important, but I don't think the governing bodies, the people who have these alphabet titles, want us to know that.
So we don't know. That's not an information that can be found until somebody tests negative for it, or positive for something.
It's something you'd have to look into, but I think it can be found. If you're looking for each judge's scorecard, it takes a little bit of work. But I'm sure on those judges' scorecards, if you're willing to look for round by round which rounds Adelaide Bird scored for Canelo versus Golovkin, if you're willing to go that far into seeing a scorecard, that's about as far as you'll have to go to find out who's responsible for the drug testing of this fight.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Do you know who busted Canelo for the tainted meat? Do you know which organization that was?
My guess would be, well, because I was against Golovkin, and Golovkin's been known to pass all these VADA tests. My guess would be it was a VADA tested fight, and they caught him.
Mhm.
Uh, and going against Kovalev, that was an USADA tested fight, and he knocked out a middle, not what do you call it, a lightweight.
Like, yeah,
There's gotta be something involved in there. I don't want to make any accusations, especially
a light heavyweight. Yeah.
right, the beginning of the show, I didn't want to accuse anyone of taking any drugs, but that fight was not VADA tested, and that's all I do know about that. Was it USADA? I don't know, but I do know it was not a VADA tested fight.
So it sounds like it's kind of. I think what people feel when boxing is corrupted, you hear that a lot as a boxing fan. It's like, oh, I can't watch. When you're talking to somebody, they go, oh, I can't watch boxing; it's too corrupt. Well, there are times, yes, but that's in every sport. There's going to be some problems in every sport, and obviously, when they're boxing giant things that happen, whether it's a failed drug test or a judge that goes rogue, like Adelaide Bird did, or stuff like that, people can point and say, see, but they do the same thing in the NFL. They say, see that call that happened that way? That's because of this. I think they're trying to clean it up, but I think almost like there's too many titles and sanctions and stuff like that. They need to bring it all together and just agree on one independent place, if it's VADA or whoever, to do all the drug testing for all the fights. I think that would be a better way. One that has, you said VADA's got the best track record. They show up when they want to. They ain't going to tell you about it, and they don't take bribes and stuff like that. We need to have something that's just overall. I think getting back to, that style where it's all in the open. Hey, we're showing you this is why we're doing it. Right now, there's so many divisions and stuff. It's hard to follow, and as I said, we're the only championship that matters. So again, congratulations, Canelo. But there's just too many belts. Belts don't mean anything anymore. And something as important as drug testing to make sure that the fight is on the up and up and everyone's on even ground, even footing to show who's the best man in the fight. You should have something that's out there that everyone could be able to research that too, and say, okay, this was done. Here's the results, stuff like that. That should be something. Absolutely. If boxing wants to get back in the mainstream of, we're not corrupt. We're the sweet science to watch. You got to be more open and stuff like that. And if someone as big an expert as you are, tells me there's 3 different organizations and one of them is or 2 of them are corrupt and stuff like that. And yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard
Well,
pill.
like the world anti-doping, like they're corrupt in the sense as they've been known to take money. I don't think USADA has been known to take money, so like calling them corrupt is a bit much, but it is what it is. And in order to really fix all this, the governing bodies aren't going to do anything because there's too much money involved in making these fights happen. If someone gets busted for not passing a drug test, you know who loses money? Almost everybody involved in boxing. What is boxing? It's not like UFC, where UFC has a governing body. It is Dana White, and he's in charge of a roster full of people. Where
Mm,
boxing, it's like these people versus those people.
mm,
What it's gonna take is networks demanding VADA testing. It's going to take DAZN and Showtime and Fox and ESPN and whoever it may be. They need to demand that anything on their airwaves must be VADA tested. If they can make that happen, we're in business. But there's also other networks, Sky Sports and BT Sports. This is a worldwide thing, and Dana White has his hands on what he has his hands on. He controls all that. Boxing, no one could. There is no boxing. There's no commissioner.
right.
So it will probably never happen. So we take what we can get, and this is what we've got.
Well, to prop Dana White too, he suspended his most popular champion several times for failing drug tests. Was it John Jones Jr.? I'm not a big UFC guy anymore, but
I don't know.
I know he's the champion and he failed drug tests multiple times and he's suspended him multiple times. It's like, sorry, you're a black eye to my sport, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what, that would be a nice first step to unifying boxing under one unifying governing body. That's what boxing needs. You need to have one champion for each division. You don't need 18 champions of each weight. That makes no sense to anybody. And you can't have certain fights because certain promoters can't get on the same page about money. And that's just, it ruins things. You wouldn't have that in the Super Bowl. You couldn't say, well, the Patriots aren't going to show up unless they get 80% of the money coming into this thing. They need a governing body that's going to say, no, okay, he's the number one contender. You're fighting him. And if you don't, give up the belt or give up your spot.
Yeah, but this is also a combat sport. You're talking about someone's life. People are losing lives in the ring. You can't make somebody fight. You want to take a belt, that's fine. You want to take Canelo's belts, that's fine. Canelo's still going to make that money off of his fan base anyways. Just like Golovkin, not to say he doesn't have a fan base, but where is the promotion for him? It would, in your world, it would be nice, but it would never happen. I don't even think about it like that anymore. I have to deal with what we have, and this is what we have, and I'm satisfied. It could be worse, it could be better, but it could be worse.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be better for the casual fan too. Like, say you're at a bar and you're talking to somebody about boxing, and they're starting to show interest in it, and they said, okay, well, who's the middleweight champion? Well, that's a tough question because we have 4 belts or 5 belts.
Well, the belts, but that's why the belts don't matter. The middleweight champion is Canelo.
Right.
Canelo beat the man who beat the man. He beat Miguel Cotto 2013 or something, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
That was the man. So we know who the champion is.
Right.
You can go to Ring Magazine and know who the champion is. That is who the champion is. When people move divisions, move up and move down, if you don't have that Ring Magazine title, you are not the champion. Yeah, WBO and WBA and WBC and the IBF and the IBO. I mean, they're all just alphabet titles. None of those things matter. That's all money. But if you want to know who the champion is, the information is right there. You just got to look it up. I don't care who champions are. I really don't.
Well, you do care that who the BAB champion is. We care about that because that is the only title that matters.
That matters.
And Canelo Alvarez is our first BAB champion.
I can't wait till he's the first. I can't wait till he's the first former BAB champion.
Hey, we'll have to touch on it, especially if he loses. We'll come back to a lot of these filthy fives too, because they're a never-changing list. And next week we're going to do welterweights. I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be a tough one. I don't know if we're going to have a champion. I guess we'll find out. But there are so many good welterweights that are fun to talk about. That's going to be a fun filthy five next week. So, John, I hope that answered your question. I know we kind of went off a little bit of off topic there, but we got a lot of good information there for you. And if you follow us on Twitter, you can drop in your questions for Filthy Rich. We'll answer one fan question each week. Thank you, John and Egan. I hope that answered your question. And that'll be at Brews and Boxing on Twitter. You can also go to the Raider Live Twitter page or the YouTube page. Obviously, you're watching this. And you can leave a comment down below for your question down there. We'll pick it up down there. Or you can watch it on the Facebook, Raider Live on Facebook. You can leave a comment there with your boxing question. And we will hopefully put it up on one of our episodes. So, Rich, unless you have anything else you want to add to this week's episode?
Can we talk more Chris Jericho? We can do that another time, right?
We'll do that in the after show. So future of this show too, we're talking about possibly adding some new twist to it. Maybe adding an after dark show. We're bringing guests. If that's something that interests you, leave a comment down below. We're talking about bringing in guests, maybe a call in. We're twisting this all around, seeing what sticks, see what's good, what's not. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like down in the comments, and we will consider it and move on. I can't wait for more episodes of this. That's a second episode in the books there, Filthy Rich. Again, follow us on youtube.com. Search for Raider Live. That's where you'll find all episodes of Brews and Boxing. And if we get to 100 subscribers, I get my own custom URL for that page. So please subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe to that. There's also many other great shows on there. We got live trivia every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central, starring me. So that's always a good thing to tune into. How'd you do last week, Rich? I know you played the trivia game last week.
I stunk.
There wasn't any boxing questions on there, I don't think.
Yeah, I wasn't very useful. Worst teammate ever.
But it was a lot of fun. Well, that's our episode 2. Thanks again, Filthy Rich, for joining me. And I look forward to next week.
Me too.
All right, signing off.
See you, man.